So I'm sure these few days were very rewarding. And as I said when we met on Monday, to come to it as one of these difficult times, just to learn Torah in Yerushalayim is an amazing schus. And I hope we all have many more opportunities to learn together and to embrace our people and to spend time in Yerushalayim. So as you go home, I hope you will take along with you this experience of Yarchei, Kallah, and Yerushalayim, Yirakodish. So I gave an introductory shiur 3 days ago when we started the sugya, and now we plan to wrap things up. So, in which mitzvahs does Shlichus apply, and to which mitzvahs is Shlichus not relevant? Fundamentally, there are a few different approaches. I think Monday we mentioned the K'tzais HaChoshen. K'tzais HaChoshen Kuf Pei Beis, and it is on our sheet number 30, page number 30. His fundamental approach is the difference between active and passive. Many mitzvahs require some active deed, and Shlichus will only apply to maisim. But when you're performing a mitzvah in a passive way, to use Lashon Kodesh, and at the end of the day, Lashon Kodesh is the language of Torah. And I can never explain anything as good in English and learning as in Lashon Kodesh. Maseh ve'matzav. Some mitzvahs require a maaseh, which means actively doing something. Other mitzvahs are just a metzias. It's just a matzav. It is being in a certain situation. So according to the Ktsaïs, tefillin is not putting on tefillin. Tefillin is just a matzav. It is a state of affairs when tefillin are on your forehead and on your arm, and in that case, Shlichus wouldn't apply. And there are many problems with the K'tzais HaChoshen's approach. Approach number 2 is even a bigger chiddush, and that is the Chassam Sofer. And I think we have the Chassam Sofer. I hope so, but I'm not sure that we do. Yes, we do, in Siman Reish Aleph. So the Chassam Sofer maintains that Shlichus should apply to each and every mitzvah. And the only ones in which Shlichus will not apply is only if there's exeris akasav, that Shlichus would not be relevant. And the Chassam Sofer argues, by tefillin, ukshartem la'ois al yodecho, shetehei kshira l'cholechod v'yechod. Maybe some of you remember the Gemara Menachos Samach Vav, even if you didn't learn Menachos. Sfiras u'oimer, there is no Shlichus. Everybody needs to count on his own, and the Gemara learns that from Usfartem Lachem, Shetei Sfira L'cholechod Ve'echod. Ulekachtem Lachem, Shetei Lekicha L'cholechod Ve'echod. So there's some sort of arguments. By tefillin, Ukshartem, Shetei Kshira L'cholechod Ve'echod. If not, Shlichus would apply to tefillin. What bothers me with the Chassam Sofer, I think the droshes Shetei Sfira L'cholechod Ve'echod is not based on the word Usfartem, but rather Usfartem Lochem, Ve'lokachtem Lochem. By tefillin we do not find Ukshartem Lochem. It's just Ukshartem. But the Chassam Sofer would be a gewaldige chiddush, because what about matzah? What about moror? What about sukkah? What about so many different mitzvahs? And nowhere in Chazal do we find the kshartem shetei kshira l'cholechod v'yechad. Drushes, that is the authority of Chazal. A drusha that's not found in the Gemara isn't really a drush. Approach number 3. Before I share with you my thoughts and my feelings, approach number 3 would be, there are 2 different categories in mitzvahs. If we try to break down the entire spectrum of mitzvot asay, many mitzvahs are to achieve a result, an outcome. We have a mitzvah to burn chometz because we shouldn't have chometz in our possession. We have a mitzvah to build a makkah on our roofs because we don't want to endanger people. People might fall and might get killed. Many mitzvahs are just to achieve a result. Many mitzvahs are all about the deed, the actual deed. When you say Kriya Shema, there is no result. There's no practical result. It's just about Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim. Shlichus would apply only to category number 1, not to category number 2. But let me share with you the way I see the entire realm of Shlichus v'mitzvahs. And you know, it's a Jewish custom. A Jew can't answer an answer without asking a question, maybe a rhetorical question. So a person had a very difficult life and a very painful life, Shalom Neida. And he says, I have difficulty loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is what it is. You know, I've suffered so much. But I have a wonderful neighbor. He learns in Kollel all day, and he has a wonderful life. He's my shliach for Ahavas Hashem. Would that work? Making a shliach for Ahavas Hashem. Or another person just was exposed to things a Jew shouldn't be exposed to. He read too much literature. He asked questions in Amunah. But he says, I pay a kollel guy $500 a month. He's my shliach to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Does that make sense? Some of you are smiling. Obviously, it's a ridiculous question. And to me, Mo Hashem Elokecho shoyal me'imach. Ki yim liyira oisai. Ula ovdoi. Just like every bar das, every sensible person understands, there could be no shliach la'avas Hashem, le'yiras Hashem, le'emunas hayichud. To me, it is just as simple. There could be no shliach to avodas ukeil. We're all here to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And just like you can't make a shliach to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can't make a shliach to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Exactly in the same way, you cannot make a shliach to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So fundamentally, many mitzvahs are, in their very essence, avodas ukeil. And I'm going to share with you something you never heard before. All the mitzvahs that are essentially avodas Hashem are the ones associated with Seder Hayom, Shabbos, U'Moed. All the others are only to achieve a result. And this makes so much sense. All the mitzvahs that belong to Seder Hayom, Shabbos, U'Moed, that is the backbone of Yiddishkeit. That is why we live. That is why we spend time in this world. And what are those mitzvahs? Kriya Shema Tefillah, Me'ah Brochas B'Kol Yom, your Tefillin and your Tzitzis, Kiddush and Avdolah, Lulav and Sukkah, Matzah and Moror. That's the entire package. These mitzvahs are essentially what we call avodas ukeil. All the others are just to achieve an outcome. Whether it's Micah, Sreifas Chometz, I'll give you the most powerful example. Uve'arto horo mikirbecho is a mitzvah asay. To administer and execute Daled Mises Beistin. It's a mitzvah asay. Uve'arto horo mikirbecho. There's a Yid that's his job. He tried to be a Rav, he wasn't successful. Tried to be a Malamed, it didn't work out. The only job he got, he's the guy that controls the gallows, and you know, that's his mitzvah. One day he calls his wife. I don't know what's happening. For the past 2 weeks, I'm saying Tillim all day. I finish Tillim twice a day. I'm going out of my mind. You know, it's been a while since I was Mekayim any mitzvah. I'm just saying Tillim all day. And then after 2 days, he calls his wife, 9 o'clock in the morning. You wouldn't believe this. What a lucky day. I came to the office and there was a note on the door outside. 2 skila, 2 sreifa, 1 hereg, 4 chenek, 9 mitzvahs. What a beautiful day, he tells his wife. You ridiculous idiot. We say to you, you're out of your mind. You're the stupidest person in the world. He says, why? I remember the Rambam writes at the end of Hilchas Lulav, and I'm quoting the Rambam, Hasimcha sheyismacha odam ba'asiyas hamitzvos avodo gedolo hi, v'kol hamorneya atzmoi mesimcha zu ra'ui lehiporoi mimeno. The Rambam writes, you got to be happy when you do a mitzvah. How we say idiot? It depends which mitzvah. Not all the mitzvahs are the same. The Rambam writes that halacha, that line, on Hilchas Lulav, usamachtem lefnei Hashem Elokecho. Yes, Simchas Yom Tov you do with Simcha. Lulav b'Simcha. Kriya Shema b'Simcha. Killing people, even when it's a necessity, it's a mitzvah. But this is not a mitzvah you need to be very happy about. When Sanhedrin paskins Misa, they fast that day. They are required to fast. So we need to differentiate between different categories of mitzvahs. Uve'arta harom mikarbechu is a mitzvah to say. It is a necessity. That is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed. But killing people is not essentially avodas ukeil, like davening, or kriya shema, or putting on tefillin. So many mitzvahs are just about the outcome, about the result. Building a makkah, tvilas kelim. The mitzvahs that are essentially avodas ukeil are only the ones, Seder Hayom, Shabbos, and Yom Tov. All the others are about the result. And in avodas ukeil, there could never be shlichus. Every sensible person needs to appreciate and understand we are here to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And just like one cannot make a shlich to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one cannot make a shlich to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is why there could be no shlichus by lulav or tefillin or tzitzis or kriya shema or achilas matzah. These mitzvahs are essentially avodas ukeil. But this brings us to a bigger problem. In our booklet, we have 4 sources. I think we have all 4. 4 sources that prove that a mitzvah that is all about the result, Shlichus isn't even required. So let's have a look. Page 42, Machne Ephraim. Page 42. Simen Yud Aleph Hilchos Shluchim. Mi sheroitze letaken hamaka al yedei uman goy, I yevorech olav. Person needs to buy a makkah. You bought a new house in Yerushalayim, and there's a roof, which is a beautiful veranda, and he needs to build a makkah, otherwise he can't use that roof. How are you going to get Jewish workers to build a makkah? It's been a while since any Jew built anything in Eretz Yisrael. We're renovating our shul now, and we have a wonderful person, a Jew, doing all the work. So to lay the tiles, he brought some Chinese, because there are no Palestinians now in our towns. So the Machne Ephraim has a question. And he says, yes, you could make a broch. So let's see the second paragraph, second column, page 42. V'oid hoyo nera tam acher loimer sheyochel levorech olav. V'yafal pisha goy esoi ve'ein shlichus legoy. Heiche domi b'mide de boy shlichus. Kegon truma v'ki yoytze boy. Aval b'mide de loy boy shlichus, o ben lavachi, yochel chaveroi la'asoi soy o masha osa osui, kegon nidin di dan, di yitik el makkah shel chaveroi shalom edatoi. Harei ze shapa, ki nama osa yadei goy, choshev kilu asou, ha-Yisroel. So he writes, makkah doesn't necessitate shlichus. It's all about the outcome. What's the difference how you brought the makkah to be? It's my house, my responsibility, my roof. I saw to it that I'm going to have a makkah. So even though there is no shlichus l'goy, and the non-Jew is building the makkah, I could say a brocha. That's a gewaldige chiddush. He based a guy cannot put on a mezuzah.
And why is that different? If it's the result that they should have a mezuzah on the house.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. He proved his point from the Rashba. Ki yoytze leze kosev Rashba de tfilas kalim, kiven de idi it bila yisol shalom edate masha osa osoi, tfilas goy name mehani. However, the Rashba doesn't write that you could make a bracha. The Rashba writes, tfilas goy mahani. But who says you could make a bracha? That's the pre-chodosh. In Semen Kuf Chof in Yoredeya. And the logic of the pre-chodesh is exactly the same logic as the Machne Ephraim. If it's all about the result, Shlichus isn't necessary. The non-Jew is the one that does Tfilas Kelim, and the owner of the Kelim says the bracha. The non-Jew will build the Makkah, and the homeowner will say the bracha. We turn a page, 44. Gewaltige Chiddush in Mogen Avraham. The Mogen Avraham deals with the situation Kosav Maharash, the bottom of the right column in Mogen Avraham. B'shem Maharam, Kishesh chuppah b'yerev Shabbos, u'ma'achram bo ad achar shkia sachamo. Once it was very popular to make chuppahs erev Shabbos in the afternoon, and the chuppah wouldn't be over till after the shkia. V'isha eine roitze lekabel Shabbos lefnei chuppah, because she wants to drive to the chuppah. So she doesn't want to be Makabel Shabbos earlier. As tadlek haner beloy brocha koydem achupa, v'yachekach b'chashech u'tifris yodeu ala neres v'tavorech. O, option number 2, toimer legoy lahadlech achar achupa, v'hi tavorech. She could ask a non-Jewish neighbor or worker, you put on the candles, and she would say the brocha. How would that be? Ein Shlichus l'nochri. How could she say a bracha when a non-Jew is madlek neiros? Rabbi Kiva Eger, next page, page 45. Disagrees with the Mogen Avraham, and he wonders, how could she say a bracha when a non-Jew will put on the candles, ein shlichus lenachri? Dibra Maschel, Mogen Avraham Siv Koten Yud Aleph, Lani es dati gam al idach tekona de toimer lagoy lahad lekosher, kiven de ein shlichus lenachri, im kein hi ein madlekes, ve'ech tevorech. And in parentheses, Taz Kufchof. What is there? A non-Jew does Tfilas Kelim, and the Jew says the bracha. So the Mogen Avraham probably would compare Hadlokas Ner Shabbos to Tfilas Kelim to Binyan Makkah. Rabbi Kiva Eger says no. Hadlokas Ner Shabbos, if there is no Shlichus, how could you say a bracha? And after 3 sources of Achronim, we go back to Tshuvas HaRashba, page 41. And the Rashba writes a gewaltige Chiddush. If it wouldn't be a Gezeres HaKosuv, she'ein mises based in b'Shabbos, then the Beis could be Mekayim the mitzvah of mises based in with a goy. Oid kosafto, pere b'yenai, ki moi koloker b'yoysi motzerech etam lechmoloi sevar yesh. Ein Eloim medin atil shom etei nasas al yedei goyim, hechel matzini sheyochal akayim mitzvah say al yedei goyim. That is what the person that corresponded with the Rashba wrote. And the Rashba writes, Kain ani sover sheyecholen bezdin letzaves legoy lizrok psila letoch piv, she'ein hagoy ela shlichus shel bezdin, ve'ein mises bezdin tzorach gufoy shel bezdin. And the Rashba writes, why not? Bezdin could ask a goy to actually execute Mises Bezdin, and that would not be a problem. That means the Bezdin could be Mekayim their mitzvah with a non-Jew, and the reason is, it's all about the result. And this brings an interesting question. So maybe there is no such a thing at all as Shlichus b'mitzvahs. Either you don't need Shlichus, or Shlichus wouldn't apply. If it's Avodas Hashem, there is no Shlichus. And that is why Shlichus isn't relevant by tefillin, by matzah, by lulav, by davening. And if it's about the result, there is no need for Shlichus. As we see in the Machne Ephraim, Pri Chodesh, Mogen Avraham, Rashba. And therefore, I think there are not two categories, but three different categories in mitzvahs, let's say. The two extremes. On the right, mitzvahs that have no result, have no outcome. Avodas ukeil in its purest form, in its essence. And as I said before, all the mitzvahs of Seder Hayom. Kriyas Shema Shachris till Kriyas Shema Shalavis. The three tefillahs in the middle. Mea brochas b'kol yoyim. Your tzitzis and your tefillin. Shabbos and Yom Tov. That is pure, essentially, avodas ukeil. Shlichus wouldn't apply. Just like there is no shlichus by Ahavas Hashem and Yerosoi. The other end of the spectrum is mitzvahs that are all about the result and not about the actual deed. The most striking example, as I said before, would be Uvi'arta horo mikirbecho, Daled Mises Bezdin. Similar Makkah, similar Tvilas Kalim, but there's something in the middle. There are many mitzvahs in which there is a result, and the mitzvah is about achieving the result. But the act is also of extreme significance and kedusha. The most striking example would be Milah, Milas Habein. It's about the result. Every Jew needs the chosim of ois bris kodesh. And Chazal and Medrash say that Avraham Avinu sits by Shara Gehenim, and he checks everyone that is brought into Gehenim, and anyone that has the ois bris kodesh, he locks the door, doesn't let them into Gehenim. Well, we should be zocher. But every bardas understands that the act of a father taking his 8-day-old child and cutting his flesh. I've been a Sandik hundreds of times, and I'm always moved, and sometimes moved to tears, by holding that little infant on my lap and hearing his cries and seeing the blood. And Chazal say in Medrash Pashas Lech Lecho, Ke koyen godel hamakrav korban al gabe hamizbeach. So is Milah about the result or about the act? It's a combination. It is to achieve a result, and that result is defined as ois bris kodesh. But the act is also of extreme significance. It is one of the Asor Nisyonis of Avraham Avinu. Well, his Nisayon was circumcising himself when he was 100 years old, but still, it is an act that embodies and symbolizes what Mesiras Nefesh is all about. Similar, Shlichus Pesach. So at the very outset of our sugi, we learned that the Gemara 3 sources from which we learn Shlichus. Gerush and Troma, which are a chalois, as I explained Monday. Shlichus Pesach is not a chalois, it's just a mitzvah. How do we learn Shlichus from Shlichus Pesach if Shlichus doesn't apply to mitzvahs? Shlichus Pesach is like Milah. It's about the result. Because karbonos are mechaper, they atone for our sins. Karbonos are meratza, they appease the Kodesh Baruch Hu and make him happy. But the avodas hamikdash, the act is of importance. And a machsheves shelo lishma, pasels a korban. So everybody agrees, everybody can understand that the koyanim hagdoshim in Beis Hamikdash, Shlita, Kabbalah, Hoiloches, Rika, avodas hakarbonos are acts of significance. They're acts of kedusha. So mitzvahs that are a combination between the deed and the result necessitate shlichus, and shlichus applies. And that is the gather in the middle. On one hand, avodas Hashem that has absolutely no actual result. On the other end of the spectrum, mitzvahs that are all about the outcome, and the deed into itself is not avodas ukeil. And then there are the mitzvahs that are a combination of the actual act and the result of that act. And in those cases, shlichus is relevant, and shlichus is also necessary. And that is my approach or my understanding generally of shlichus b'mitzvahs. So I don't know whether you got the material, but I did send two simonim of Minchas Osher, in which I discussed the concept of shlichus in general, and shlichus b'mitzvahs in particular. One is Minchas Osher Parshas Boy, and the other one I think is Minchas Osher Parshas Korach, in which I did discuss the fundamentals about shlichus and my approach about shlichus b'mitzvahs. When does shlichus apply? When does shlichus not apply? And when is shlichus necessary? And when shlichus is totally unnecessary? And those are the three different categories and different types of mitzvahs. So this is just to wrap up this very interesting sugya, and most of Gedolei Achronim dealt, and each with their own attitude and different approaches to understand the concept of shlichus b'mitzvahs. So once again, before we part and before we say goodbye, and thank you for being part of the Somayach family. It's a big schus. Somayach was I think the forerunner, the first major and great organization to realize the opportunities we have in our day and age of bringing Jews together and bringing Jews back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't think ever in history did we have these opportunities as we do have today. Maybe in the days when the prophets walked the land, and maybe in the days of the Nevi'im that brought the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the world, but for many, many generations we didn't have these opportunities, and today so many different organizations are involved in Kiruv. But I think Somayach was there from the outset, from the beginning, and our esteemed Rosh Hashiva, Rav Shiller, was one of the first pioneers in this holy endeavor of Kiruv L'Choikim. So thank you for being part of our Somayach, and it was a pleasure to teach Torah here, and I hope going home you should take with you part of this experience. We are living in a day and age which is very exciting. And I once said an interesting statement. Never before was it as easy to be a Talmid Chacham as it is today. Never before has it been so difficult to want to be a Talmid Chacham as it is today. Because if you want to learn Torah, today Torah is so appealing and so relatively easy. Once all you had was an old Shas. And today you have Schottenstein in Ivrit, in English, in French, in Spanish. You have so much literature. You have Schottenstein, Bavli, Yerushalmi, and Oiz V'Hodar, and Metifta, and who knows what else. And there are a zillion wonderful shiurim on the internet and in English and every language. How many daf yomis are there? I know some people that have 3 different daf yomi shiurim every day. And you have a 20-minute daf yomi. I think the record I don't know whether Zingeris is a 7-minute daf yomi. There is so much Torah going on and so much literature. Every miktsaya in halacha that you want to learn, you have 30 svarim. There is so much literature. Never was it so easy to learn Torah as it is today. But never was it as tough as it is today to instill in our children the wish to be a Talmid Chacham. So going back to the shtetl in Europe, what were Jewish kids exposed to? What did they see? They saw their home and their shul, and all they saw was the Rav of the shul and the Rosh Hashiva and some elders of the community. They weren't exposed to much more than that. But our kids today are exposed to so many distractions and so much negativity and so much things that we would wish and hope they would not be exposed to. So never before was it as easy as it is today to be a Talmid Chacham, but never before was it as difficult as it is today to be mechanech your children to want to be Talmidei Chacham. So the greatest gula for chinuch today is just bringing up children in an atmosphere of simcha. Simchas HaTorah and Simchas HaMitzvah. And when kids will see their parents learning and coming back from a shiur with a great smile, and the father shares with his family what he learned today. And that is the greatest gula of having your children want to follow in your footsteps. So every day in the morning we say Berachas HaTorah. Perhaps the most important bracha we have. And why do I say maybe the most important bracha? There are only 2 brachas that are min HaTorah. All the others are the Rabbanon. One is min HaTorah beyond doubt. And that's a posuk. V'ochalto, v'savoto, u'verachto es Hashem Elokecha. Which is the other one? Berachas HaTorah. The Gemara on Brachas Dashins, we learn it from a posuk. Ki shemesh emekro, havu goydel Elokeinu. The Rambam doesn't bring it in Sefer HaMitzvos. Some argue that according to the Rambam, it's midrabanan, and the posuk is an asmachta. But it is only regarding Berachas HaTorah that the Gemara says in Adoram Peyaraf, Al Mo'av de Ha'oretz, what brought about Chorban Beis HaMikdash? Al Azvam Esterosi, Shalei Baruchu B'Torah Techila. And if the lack of Berachas HaTorah brought about Chorban HaBayis, we could understand, obviously, this bracha is extremely important. How many brachas do we have? 3. The first one is Berachas HaMitzvah. And that is the basic formula of Berachas HaMitzvah. Asher kedushono b'mitzvosav v'tzivano la'asok b'divrei Torah. Third one is Berachas HaShevach. Asher b'chabonu mekol ha'amim v'nosanonu es terasoi. Then there's the middle bracha. How is it defined? V'harevnu Hashem Elokecho es divrei terascho b'finu v'nihi anachnu v'tzetzuenu v'tzetzui tzetzuenu kulonu yodei shemecho v'lomdei serusecha l'shmo. This bracha is defined as Birchas HaTfilah. What is Birchas HaTfilah? Most brachas we just give thanks and praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But in some brachas, we also plea with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we ask Him to give us something. So which brachas are you aware of that would be defined as Berachas HaTfilah? All the middle brachas of Shemoneh Esrei, besides the first 3 and the last 3. Bakoshes Tzlachim. What else? Do you remember any other bracha in which we not only thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but we ask Him for something? Tfilas HaDerech. When we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to save and salvage us and to look over us. And it is also the middle bracha in Berachas HaTorah. V'harevnu. But it is very uncommon that in one bracha we have 2 different themes and 2 different bakoshes. Usually every bracha is one theme. So on one hand we ask, V'harevnu Hashem Elokeinu, let us partake in the sweetness of Torah. And then we say, just a minute, we have another bakosha as well for our kids. And I say, these are not two different bakoshas, two sides of the same coin. Because it is only if we appreciate Torah, and we love Torah, and we enjoy Torah, that we really stand a fair chance that our children will want to do the same, and they will want to follow in our footsteps. And therefore we ask, V'harevnu Hashem Elokecho es divrei Torascho b'finu, and then v'nihiyeh anachnu v'tzetzuenu, and our kids should follow in our footsteps, and they should follow in the same path as we have followed our forefathers. So that is my bracha to all of you. I hope you enjoyed your stay here. I hope you enjoyed learning, and keep it up. And you should have so much nachas from your children and grandchildren and your families, and they should all follow in our footsteps. So Yarchei, and we should only hear B'Seiras Tovis, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help that this terrible war should be over b'karov. V'yiskayim banu v'natati shalom ba'oretz v'shachaftem v'ein machrid, and this beloved, pained land should come back to normalcy, and we should just be able to learn and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Eretz Yisrael b'shalom u'b'shalva u'b'simcha. We should share B'Seiras Tovis, and we should be Zercha B'Korov Tabias Moshiach Tzedkenu B'mheiro V'yomeinu. Amen.